We are all set.
We're all set. Good morning, everybody. It's 10 o'clock, so I'm going to call to order the Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission for October 10th, 2022. And maybe start with a roll call, please. And we'll just go left to right.
I'd say Norfolk District. Rob Knight, 4th District.
Keith Kaufman Gray, 1st District.
Gary Blazer, 2nd District.
Randy Malcolm, 5th District. Okay, and do we have any public comment for any item that is not on today's agenda?
If you'd like to make a public comment on right now, just raise your hand if you're in a Zoom chat. Daniel Leckie, go ahead.
Hi, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we can.
Hi, this is Dan Leckie. I'm the Caltrans architectural historian, and I'll be speaking about the Broadband Middle Mile project and its potential to impact the Cold Spring Canyon Bridge today. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you. So hearing no other public comment, we'll move on to the minutes for September 12th, 2022.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, go right ahead.
I have suggestions for revisions to these minutes. Under sections 6, 7, and 8, which were parts of the administrative agenda, which originally had been tabled and then came to later on, and then because of the late hour, basically, we deferred those discussions. So I suggest that in each case, we say that we deferred our discussion so that it doesn't appear that, so that it's not unclear as far as whether or not we took any action or had discussion. So I would suggest after number 6, we say project discussion was deferred. After number 7, budget discussion was deferred. After number 8, district reports were deferred. Then going down to the actual regular agenda, the Rock Union Park nomination, I looked at these bullets and to me they seemed a little confused and somewhat unclear in terms of what was done and discussed. So I tried to reorder them in a way which I think is clear. So I suggest for the first bullet, we have inclusion. Did you copy those? Did I ask you to copy?
Sorry.
Just so commissioners could look at this while I'm reading.
Oh, I have no access to a copy right now. I would have to go all the way down to the first one.
Okay. Somehow David managed to look around. I don't know if that's better connections in here.
Possibly not.
Yeah. So I would suggest for the first bullet, the inclusion of the parcel owned by the city of Santa Barbara will require that the county and the city develop and sign a new memorandum of understanding. Then, as the second bullet, since no character-defining historic resources have been identified on the small parcel, some members felt it could be omitted from the designation to expedite landmarking. In every case where we have landmarking, I would make that a single word, land and then marking. And then the man-made boulder pile at the entrance, now referenced in the resolution, should be identified on the site plan. That's something we talked about for our if we have discussion about public works, I think we should also have the Parks Department still opposes landmarking. And then Public Works will support landmarking of the park if line 5 is added to section 2D of the resolution. Members are divided as to whether line 5 should be included. If you read it the way it is now, it seems to suggest that everybody felt that the curbing should be protected, but in fact, that was not, the curbing is protected within the resolution. The issue was having to do with line 5. So I think I've tried to state that more clearly. Members requested that alternate versions of the resolution be considered with and without line 5 and possibly with and without the city parcel.
Yeah, that was my question about, because I thought the direction was to come back with 2 resolutions about line 5, and so that we could decide as if.
That was my
I
perception
don't
too.
remember the parcel. I thought the parcel I was directed to just basically leave it out unless we come up with a memorandum of understanding. And then add a 6th line that I don't have in front of me, but basically would say that that parcel is in the county park, but it's owned by the city. And that's what I was working on for the next meeting. So I don't remember us saying to have an alternate with or without the parcel.
Okay, well then I would suggest with and without line 5 is the way we want that to read. We can scratch possibly with or without the city parcel. I did also feel that the majority of us felt that the most expeditious way was to simply omit it. And then we had to discuss the actually very simple ways the resolution could be modified to omit the city parcel.
And that's what I was planning to do when I brought it back. We can always discuss it like that.
So if
And
you
this-
want to add an
Well, no,
amendment.
I think the way you read it actually explains it perfectly.
Okay,
You know, when I was reading the actual, the minutes that we have, I was a little concerned because I don't remember us talking about that. Anyway, I like what you, thank you.
okay. Then going down to the, let's see, the HVAC comments. Let's see. Under, the HVAC comments that are for Malone alterations. Okay. On my things that I've given to you right now, the 2 last comments refer to Malone alterations. Just for clarity. Okay, and actually, the language we have in here came directly from the memo that Commissioner Nye wrote. And he asked for some of our comments on it. And I replied back to him with some suggested changes to it, but evidently those didn't get into the cycle. So I'm going to suggest some minor revisions to what he's got there under Malone. In the 4th bullet, he has it's referring to the original molded cornices. I suggested to him that he use the same language that the architect uses, which in fact, the architect review refers to cast stone lintels. And also make the language say, consider retaining the cast stone lintels over the 2 existing single doorways in the courtyard, as he's got this written. But also adding on to that, if additional doors or lights are grouped, the lintel should extend over the entire unit, because that is in fact what you see in the house. It's everywhere where there are multiple lights or multiple doors. With one of these lintels, it goes over the whole thing, not just the door part. So that's the suggested revision to the 4th bullet I'd made. And then on the very last bullet, instead of retain the entire backyard, fountain, hallway, etc., make it consider retaining the entire backyard, fountain, hallway. And then on McKillen Edition, just get rid of the typo, the MA. Okay.
Any comments on these potential changes to the minutes? Not those, but my own. Okay, go ahead, Commissioner. Next regular meeting should be October 10th. And we have a move to accept the minutes as amended.
Mr. Chair, then I move to accept the minutes of September 12th, 2022 as amended.
We have a move in second. All in favor, say, no, we have to do a roll call vote, I'm sorry. Commissioner Duncan,
Aye.
Commissioner Knight,
Aye.
Commissioner Bleacher,
Aye.
Commissioner Malcolm, aye, Commissioner Cochran, aye. Okay, that's approved, and we have two people that are doctors. That are. Okay, let's move on to staff updates. The Planning Development, each like staff will provide a brief oral report on items of general interest to the commission. Any staff update today?
No, for staff, sorry.
Yeah, I do have one. It's kind of disappointing news. At the last meeting, I was saying that we're going to have a new member on the HLAC. She was supposed to be nominated on September 13th, the day after our meeting. And it turns out that she withdrew her nomination at the last minute. And it was due to a legal assessment on the small possibility of incompatibility of her role on the Lompoc Planning Commission in HLAC. So she was, told that there might be a conflict at some time. We were dealing with something at Lompoc, and she decided that she wouldn't chance any conflict of interest, so she decided not to accept it. And as we all know, she could have just recused herself and not did it, but county council mentioned that to her and gave her the option what to do, and she decided not to. So we're now have another opening in District 3.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I feel obligated to comment on that. I know county council feels obligated to point out anytime there is a legal threat to the county's action. But I feel this is really overreacting. I think the reason why this woman decided to withdraw her application was because she was told if somebody were to make an allegation of prejudice in this case or conflict of interest, that then the only way to address it would be to resign from the first post that she was appointed to. And she didn't want to have to resign from being a Lompoc planning commissioner. I feel the chance of a true conflict of interest are so remote, given that our jurisdiction doesn't extend to the city of Lompoc. It's true, on occasion, that we will write a letter to another jurisdiction if we have concerns about historic resources. But in that case, that individual could easily recuse him or herself from the discussions and therefore avoid any conflict of interest. I thought to have to defend yourself against what would clearly be a specious accusation of conflict of interest in this manner is highly speculative. And what it does is it means that we don't get experienced people with knowledge of the county and our historic resources. So I would hope county council's advice in the future would be based upon what we're most likely to see and what are real threats. And the real threat right now is we just don't have anybody from Lompoc or that area, and we don't have a third district commission. So maybe I'm out of line telling council what to do, but that's this commissioner's perspective from the years I've been.
Okay, so that was my only staff update. So I guess we'll move on to item 5, project discussions. I don't think we have any discussions really today for that, item 5. Item 6, HLAC and budget. We did receive budget. And I have to say, that we are posting a lot of things on the budget, which I don't think are necessary for us. I don't know, though, if you just have to post that just because they give it to you. But I think the one that we really just need is the monthly update of the financial status of the Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission. I noticed there was an old one and then there's a new one. And the newer one is through 8/31/2022. And I think that is really the main one that we need to look at. And then, of course, you did the full one from the year before, 2021. And I think that's all we need. Any other commissioners like to comment?
Mr. Chair, I agree entirely. We don't need to know about the details of the staff salary issues, et cetera, and all their benefits and everything else. That's not something that we would be concerned with. What I did note, however, in looking at the two budgets, is it didn't appear that we were successful in getting our request for rollover from last year. We had the same amount budgeted there, and we didn't get those additional funds that we'd asked to get rolled over.
Right, and I did, and Mr. Martin. Know anything about that?
I wouldn't have.
Okay, sorry. I know you just get the information.
Yeah.
Okay, no, I noticed that also. So anyway, so the budget is here in front of us. The one ending 8/31, the budget is 21,100. Expenditures through 8/31, total expenditure is 6,906. So if you just look at it in general, we spent 32% of the budget so far this year. And I can see that the cost for the work that was done was included in here because it rolled into this fiscal year from Mr. Perfect, thank you. And that's at 31,881, I believe. So that is.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
The finance director, David Mitchell, actually just emailed me, the budget 9/31, if you would like me to put that on the screen.
Okay. Can you just read what the balance is? Since our-
Sorry, yes. Things like we want to do 42% of our expenditure. Expenditures will come to $9,036.45, and we have 12,064.
Chairman? Yes, let me ask Jonathan to speak a little closer to this mic.
Oh, I'm sorry. Looks like the budget expenditure was at 43% at September 30th. We have a remaining balance of $12,064, and expenditures to date is $9,036.45.
Any questions? Okay, we can move on. We are into district reports. If any individual commissioners have any brief reports, this is the time. Hearing none today, okay. I just remembered, during the staff update, I guess we've never heard back about Lake Kachuma. I mean, we sent the letter, it's been about 2 or 3 months now. What is the consensus? Should we do a follow-up or what should we do?
Mr. Chair, I think we definitely want to pursue the study of historic resources of the picture. And the persons that we mailed our letter to were basically at the recommendation of Commissioner Nye. And so let's go ahead and send that letter once again. Let's see if perhaps there's some other addresses that we need to go to.
Thank you. Okay, sorry to jump out. Okay, so no district reports. So we'll move on to our standard agenda. Item number 8 is Rocky Neck Park. That has been deferred until our next month's meeting of November 14th. So item number 9, the broadband middle mile project.
Mr. Chair, just clarification from council. Do we need a motion to actually continue it?
That's what I was going to suggest, yes.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
So do we have a motion from commissions to extend this Rocky Neck Park to the November 14th meeting?
Mr. Chair, I would move the commission continue our discussion of the Rocky Neck Park nomination, and I would actually at the next time suggest that it might be written up as designation. It's because we're not just looking at the nomination, we're looking at designate to November 14th, 2022.
Sounds good. Yeah, because I'll be bringing revised nominations for vote on that in the next meeting. Do you have a second on this? Second. Okay, Commissioner Bleacher, second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Okay, it's unanimous. Okay, we continue till November 14th. Okay, item number 9, broadband middle mile project in crossing the Cool Springs Canyon Bridge. The County and Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission will review and provide comments on a proposal for a segment which is inclusive of SR 154 to install a new conduit on the National Register of Historic Places, California Register of Historic Resources, eligible Cold Spring Canyon Bridge, number 510037. And I will not read the rest, it's all there. So I guess we'll start. We have,
Mr. Chair,
yes,
just a disclosure that I did stop this morning on the way over and made a point of driving on Stagecoach Road so I could look at the other side of the bridge.
okay. Any other recent visits? Okay, so let's see, we'll move to, I believe we have Daniel Lucky is here from Department of Transportation, Caltrans, and Mr. Lucky, do you want to do a presentation?
So yeah, hi, I'm Dan Leckie, Caltrans District 5 architectural historian. I don't have really much more to present than what was sent. This is a pretty straightforward effort. Basically, a few months ago, we were charged in partnership with the Department of Technology to install or study the installation of broadband throughout the state of California to bring, this high-speed internet access to, all Californians, but especially in rural areas like you have in the, northern part of Santa Barbara County there. It's pretty straightforward. We essentially are just trying to install some conduits on the underside of the bridge. We're pretty early on in efforts here. I tried to really jump on this and get this information out to the local historical societies and the various governmental boards as soon as I got it, because this is a very fast moving effort. And yeah, so basically, it's pretty in keeping with projects that have happened in the past, such as the installation of the scaffolding and the platforms for maintenance. I think it's honestly got less of a potential to impact the bridge. This would be installed on the underside. And we're really just looking to solicit some comments for, our SHPO consultation, bring in any, concerned parties in early on, and really use any comments that come from the commissioners and the locals to help with our project development process. If there's any way to lessen any impacts or help address any concerns with this project, we'd be glad to hear from you. It's like a two-way conversation here for sure. And any questions I can answer on this meeting. Just knowing that we're very early on the project development process here, and the amount of information I have is limited. We're, like I said, really looking to get your weigh-in and buy-in on the project at this stage.
Thank you. So we can move to questions to Mr. Lucky on this project.
Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, Commissioner Duffy.
Yeah, just for absolute clarity in terms of process, because it says in your last paragraph of the letter to us, Caltrans is interested in learning whether your organization has any interest commenting on the proposed project. So are you asking this morning from us to give you a statement as to whether or not we're interested in commenting? Or are you interested in actually starting to get our comments at this time? Because although we may not have studied it in depth, and although there may be more materials you can provide us, we might have some comments already.
I feel like if you're prepared to vote on whether you're interested in comment, that would be good to accomplish today. And obviously you guys might need a little bit more time to solicit comments and go through your own public process. We did put in, there's a 30-day timeline that we're kind of required to offer for public comment. I understand these things take a little longer. That's why I really wanted to get this particular letter out to you guys quickly. This is a fast-moving effort. If we can get any specific comments as quickly as possible, understanding that October 17th is a week away. So if you need a little bit more time, I think we could kind of squeeze it in there. Yeah, as quickly as possible for the specific comments. But I think, if we could just accomplish today, if you guys are interested in participating in the process, I think that would be helpful.
Well, as chair, this is a fast timeline, and they are coming to us for, I would think, for comments. So I would think now would be the time that we can get comments on this. And if we have questions that they need to come back to us, they can come back to us. But I'd like to hear from the commissioners what you feel about this project. And we might just feel that we're fine with it, and that's it. We might feel there might be a problem. So that's why it's here, and I think we just as well make comments on it today.
Yeah, that's excellent. I mean, I didn't want to put any pressure to push the process, any faster than it needs to go on your end. I know this is a resource where there has been some controversy in the past, and I don't think this project is that project, but I just want to make sure that we're affording you all enough time. I can share with you, we haven't gotten too many comments. I sent this out to, I think, like 8 or 9 various potential interested parties, including local historical societies around the county. And really the only comment we've gotten back so far is from the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation, just that they would request we paint anything to match. I think that's like pretty standard, and especially on such a sensitive resource here, the project development team is going to be looking for any ways to minimize the potential impact of this project. So whatever you all would have, if there are any other suggestions, they will be taken highly into consideration. We don't want this project to be controversial whatsoever.
Okay, so
Mr. Chair,
yeah.
I have a few more questions, but I know what's going to happen is my questions are blend into comment. So do we want to ask if there's any public comment on this?
That's a good idea. Is there any public comment on this item?
If you have public comment on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom chat. Doesn't look like we have any requests for public comment.
Mr. Chair, I was very interested when this item came back to us because in fact, the commission spent a lot of time looking at the proposed suicide barrier for the bridge. And this was back in 2007 or 2008. And Caltrans made numerous presentations to us and the community. And there were a number of hearings that the HVAC held on this. HVAC sent a number of letters to Caltrans regarding it. And we actually sent one of our members, Deborah Schwartz, to the design committee that was working on the design of the suicide barrier and how it could best mitigate the visual impacts of such a major change to the bridge. So there was a long-term concern over what would be happening to a structure which has is so valuable a historic resource. It's definitely eligible for national and state listing and easily a landmark in our county. And it's even a cinematic landmark in that it's been featured in films and TV numerous times and always used to indicate, oh, people are traveling in California. They're either going north or south, and in some cases specifically in our county. So it is truly a landmark in a cultural sense. So there was great deal of concern on the behalf of the HLAC. And I think we should consider that going forward, because definitely you can have impacts to historic resources by 1,000 small cuts and cumulative impacts over time. And obviously one of the really amazing things about this structure is how simple and clean it is. And the last thing you'd want to do is clutter it up with a lot of other infrastructure that somehow destroyed those simple and clean lines that are so visible. So one thing I wondered about, Mr. Lecky, simply in terms of function, does this have to be routed on the bridge? Or, is there potentially a land routing that you could take to avoid having to put the conduit on the bridge? Obviously, it would be a whole lot longer, but also it might be safer and 154 wouldn't be impacted as evidence.
I personally know that, we're basically studying this project within the Caltrans right of way. So Caltrans was directed to kind of accomplish this project, but it's really the money is coming from California Department of Technology. So it's a real partnership effort here. And I think the issue with a land routing or, trying to bypass the bridge is for, I think, what, many might consider a small impact on the underside of the bridge. There are any number of archaeological sites, biological resources. It's sort of like, if you take it in a different direction, you're bound to encounter. This is just like the most obviously feasible and direct way of sort of spanning this wide canyon. Not to mention that, Stagecoach Road, which I guess would be the viable option aside from that, has many historic and natural resources of its own. So am I going to say that would be impossible? No, but I don't think that it's would be the preferred or most feasible option. Not to mention, it's also just not within the Caltrans right of way, so we don't have the ability to kind of dictate what other jurisdictions are doing.
I suspected that would
I-
be very obligated to ask. Thank you. So in looking at the proposal as I see it now, I have another question to ask, and that is, you've given us a photograph of what the underside of the roadbed looks like alongside one of the large green girders. And the picture you've given us seems to suggest that the underside of the roadbed has been painted a brown color or a tan color, excuse me, a very light beige color. And we can also see where the painting of the girders has oversprayed onto the underside of the roadbed. And I would note that the roadbed itself is actually listed as one of the character defining elements that make this a historic resource, although it's of a much lower category, obviously, compared to the actual superstructure of the bridge. But this looks like it's painted, but when I was out there this morning, looking up, and admittedly, I was looking at the underside of the bridge that's to the south. That doesn't appear painted like this. And instead, it appears as raw concrete. Now, one thing that may be happening is there may be areas that have been subject to tagging or graffiti that have since been painted so that they're uniform. But are you sure that the area where you're planning to put the new conduit is painted as it appears in your picture?
So at this time, this is just like a representative image. This isn't necessarily like exactly where the conduit's going to go. These are the sorts of comments we're looking to have solicited. This, as I said, is a very fast-moving and somewhat political effort of trying to install this conduit and get the internet infrastructure set up, and it's moving a bit faster than other Caltrans projects. With that, we're charged, with basically studying every inch of our right of way. Our district spans from Santa Barbara County up to Santa Cruz, so it's quite a bit of mileage. The details are not quite fleshed out yet. This is certainly an early stage. And so I guess what I would hope to accomplish is hopefully getting committee buy-off on this, having your support publicly. But with that, we understand, there may be some, important comments that you'll have that can be taken within the project development phase. But as far as past maintenance projects and bad painting, all I can kind of do is apologize for that. That's unfortunate to see, like you said. And it probably is, like you said, people get up under there and they tag or whatever happens. Sometimes the paint is done for a protective reason as well. If there's any, concrete that's potentially unsound in certain places, it can help to protect on the underside. And it's kind of, it's pretty hard to see from all the way down there without getting up under on the scaffolding with a good lens and taking a good picture of it. But yeah, we don't have any exact plans for this yet. All options are currently on the table, but I think this is just kind of the area either on the northbound or southbound side. I believe the project development team was hoping to consider the northbound side because it would be more hidden from popular viewpoints, like from the Cold Spring Tavern, for example. But we don't have an exact laid out plan yet. Design is still working on all that, and we'll be working hard on doing it as quickly as possible, but it's a big effort, so it'll be worked on for a while. I hope that helps answer your question of where we are in the process. I know it's kind of vague, though. I apologize for that.
Not exactly. Obviously, my question is heading toward the discussion of painting the conduit in order to conceal its appearance. We obviously wouldn't want it to be reflective. And, but you also want, if you have it paint, that it's going to adhere well enough and long enough that we don't start seeing peeling paint on the conduit. And then getting that, whatever paint is on the conduit that actually match that underside of the roadbed. So here, where you've actually got a paint color, it's not that hard if you have good matching. But it might be trickier in areas where we didn't have a paint color to serve as a background. Instead, you have various splotchy concrete color. Generally, where the concrete's there, it's gray, but it's not 100% uniform in color. The other thing I would note here is, I think what we're going to probably really see are these bands that are the mounts that the conduit is mounted to, because you have them repeatedly placed across the underside. They're going to be sort of extending out, making lines that are perpendicular to the bridge girder infrastructure. They're going to be extending out, and as compared to lines that run totally parallel with all the bridge lines, they're probably more likely to be seen. And I think it certainly would be beneficial to have them spaced as far apart as possible, not too many of them, so that it gets busier, or we see more of those lines that are in a different direction. I did look this morning to see about the practicality of getting the conduit mounted on the underside between the girders. But it would appear to me that just is too complex. There's too many places where the girders actually directly touch the roadbed, which would mean that then the conduit has to be routed around it, and that would get so busy. And obviously it would be time consuming, and obviously access to that middle area may be even more difficult than this edge area. I'm sure you probably will end up having to put it out on this edge area, and certainly it would make sense to put it on, in typical Caltrans fashion, you're referring to the northbound or southbound side. We would talk about it in terms of being on the north side. Because it happens to be the northbound side, but it's the north side of the bridge, which faces out on the valley. And people there are going to be, if they're on a public road, they're a long way from the bridge generally, unless they're standing right underneath it on that one spot on Stagecoach. So this commissioner would definitely concur that it's that north side of the bridge that you want to put this on. And obviously you'd want to have it as simple as possible and painted as well as possible, assuming you could get your paint to adhere well in the long run, because you're giving yourself another maintenance problem. But you are underneath that bridge every so often just to paint it green. It's nice and green right now. It's been beautifully painted since the last time, and that seems to be weathering well. So that's this commissioner's comments. Thank you. Oh, and the one other thing I can think of is the placement of the vaults at the end of the bridge that you need for your connections. Obviously, they should try and be placed in a manner which doesn't interfere in any way with the view of the bridge. Thank you.
Next, Commissioner comments?
Mr. Lucky, I just want to make sure that I'm really clear on looking at your letter when you talk about attaching conduits to the edges of bridges, and then specifically talking about the Cold Spring Canyon Bridge, saying the underside of the bridge deck. So you are talking about what in this photo shows is sort of a brown beige and not the part that's green, correct?
Yes.
And are you talking about the very edge of the bridge or the edge underside? I just want to be really clear that I understand exactly what this conduit is, right?
Yeah, so it would be attached to the bridge deck from what I understand. I'm not sure if it would be, tucked in closer to the girder or further to the edge. Again, the plans have not been extensively developed. So options are kind of still on the table. So that's why it's a good point that if any commissioner has a particular opinion about that, we can kind of bring that to the PDT and the project development team and see about the feasibility of, if there were a preference to kind of tuck it into the girder or kind of have it hanging off the edge or have it directly in the middle, whatever you guys are thinking, then they can come back and see, if that's feasible.
Okay, thank you. I think
And to add, we could then, kind of codify any of those recommendations within our SHPO consultation, which will have to be taking place, hopefully ASAP, but we can sort of codify any of those recommendations and that becomes kind of like we're legally obligated to do that.
okay. Yeah, my suggestion would have been if it were possible to run a conduit between the girders so it really isn't visible from the other side, but it sounds like that's not feasible. So,
Yeah, I know that access is going to be important for maintaining the, if things go wrong, they need to be able to kind of get to it. So I think that's why it would have to be on the outside of this deck. I'm not going to say that I couldn't bring, such an item to the PDT and see if that were feasible. But there may be some pretty big drawbacks with that. It might not be possible. I can't say yes or not, but my thought on it would be, as the commissioner was saying earlier, that it seems like it would probably be problematic.
sure. I guess my comment would be to really try to take as much care as possible to make it as unobtrusive as possible. I think we've all seen, cell phone towers that are painted in light colors, but still bristle out from whatever structure they're planted on. And I would just hate to see this sticking out like a sore thumb, but painted in light colors. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Bleacher. Commissioner Malcolm, any comments? Okay, well, I guess this is comment period, so I don't have questions. So I'm just kind of agreeing with everybody. Definitely, I'm glad to see that you're planning on the north side, the valley side of the bridge, so it wouldn't be seen as much from when you're down below. Again, the conduit, I like it closer to the girder than further out, if that's possible. I know you're still in the planning stages, but I'd like to see it close to the girder, so it'd be more hidden. And again, the color of the paint to match probably the girders, whichever blends the most on that bridge. It's hard to tell with this picture. So whatever blends the most, so it's not as visible. I mean, you don't want bright red. So, I think this project, it's something that's pretty much been mandated by the state to get this through. And just whatever needs to be done to make it less visible, I think is what needs to be done. And I think you're trying right now is putting it on the north side and putting it under the underdeck closer to the girders. And that's my comments.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I disagree entirely with you as far as putting it close to the bridge. or potentially painting it green. Okay. The steel framing of this bridge is what is so iconic. And I don't think we want in any way want to see that cluttered up. And you wouldn't want to paint it green because then it somehow connects or becomes confusing with the girders itself. You definitely want it painted or made of materials that will blend with the underside of the road.
Well, I guess that's what I meant, is
Yeah.
blend it in so it's not, it stands out.
And I actually would suggest that it's probably not a good idea to try and tuck it in too far, because the closer you get it into the girders, then the more likely you're somehow going to obscure the nice clean line that the girders have now. So on the other hand, the further you bring it out, the less in shade it's going to be, and the more likely that there'll be a light on it, and therefore it could be seen. So I suspect optimally for what concealment possibility there is, it's probably in the middle of that area that we're looking at the underside of the road deck. And then what you're going to see is every 10 feet, one of these mounts that is 18 inches long and coming perpendicular to that framing. And the bridge is really long. So 10 feet, there are going to be a lot of 10-foot segments where we see these crossbars that are mounting the conduit under it too. In some ways, I think those will be the things that are the most disruptive of the existing lines of the bridge. So what I think this commissioner would like is for Mr. Leckie to definitely keep in touch with us. Let us know what's happening. Give us the opportunity to speak once again as the details become more refined. And if necessary, we could write a letter or two to be very specific about what we would suggest.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. We can keep in touch and send you guys information as it develops on the specifics. No problem whatsoever. Glad to do it.
Great. Okay. Well, I guess that concludes this agenda item, and thank you, Mr. Leckie, for coming and giving.
So just before you guys conclude, I was just wondering, because every county and every CLG is like a little bit different. Could I be expecting maybe some sort of letter that just kind of codifies we had this meeting, or that you all had any specific recommendations? I mean, if not, I could just kind of paraphrase it for myself, but this is for, our documentation for the SHPO. So I want to make sure that if you all have any specific recommendations, like some of the stuff we were talking about today, that's included in there. That they'll certainly want to see that, and we want to make sure we're getting it right on our end too.
Yeah, I think we can do that, and I'll work with Commissioner Benefit on wording on this. Yeah,
excellent.
We'll have a letter sent to you. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know I had a request date of October 17th, but like I said, that's just to kind of make sure people are paying attention to it. So if you guys can get that to me with even within a month or something like that, I know it takes a little time to hammer that stuff out, and you guys are busy. Just just take your time on it. It's certainly okay, because it's an important item, and we want to make sure that you guys are got everything straight. So I appreciate your time today, and I'll look forward to hearing from you in the future. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Okay, so we'll move on to item number 10, the Ranchos Edition. County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission will review and provide comments on the proposed project that consists of two parts. Two-story addition to existing historic single-story residence, and the second part is a freestanding AUV garage and small concrete driveway apron. So we did not get a memorandum from the planner like we normally do. That is Mr. Singer here.
Good morning. Yes, I am.
Go ahead, Mr.
Thank you. I'll clarify one thing, or maybe clarify one thing on this, and then the agents for the project are here as well, so I think they'll be better suited to describe the project. But per the agenda, it says a two-story addition to the existing historic single-story residence. The historic report, which is shared on the screen, and I assume the committee has reviewed, does kind of debate whether the residence is actually historic. They claim that changes have been made to it since, and though the site in general is historic, the residence itself is not of particular historic merit anymore, which is why the historic report makes no recommendations on changes to the house itself, but that the site and the relation to other buildings on the site is historic. And with that, I'd be happy if the agent could kind of give a more in-depth overview of the project.
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on to the agent for the presentation on this project. Do we have somebody to do a presentation?
Yes, I have one hand raised. Haley, you're there?
Hi, good morning. My name is Haley Wheeler. I'm from Pegasus Architecture, so I've been the drafter on this program. I do not have any presentation, as all we've got going on right now is the report you already have on the screen. I can give comments and clarifications to any items you have questions on.
We're having a hard time hearing you.
One moment.
Did we lose?
This is Ben Singer, the planner. I believe she's trying to fix her audio. What I got from what she said is that she doesn't have a specific presentation, just relying on the materials submitted.
Can you hear me
but
better?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Hello? Can you hear me better?
Yeah, we seem better now. Go ahead.
We can hear you, Haley.
So my name is Haley Wheeler. I represent Pegasus Architecture. I am the drafter on this program. As I said, I'm not sure if you heard me, but I do not have a specific presentation to give today. We have the report, but I can give clarification or comment to any questions you have.
Okay, thank you. First, I guess we ask the commissioners have any disclosures for this project before we move forward. It is in the 5th district. Hearing that, normally we always have a presentation, so this is very unusual for us. For us to review a project without even hearing from the applicant is very different. I guess we could just go through questions from commissioners if you have questions or concerns about this project. It is in the 5th district. Mr. Malcolm, your 5th district, have you had any questions?
Yeah, I just needed some clarification. In the report, it refers to the study area as a historic district. Now, is that an official designation by the state, or I know it's not by the county, but is it official designation, or is it just something made up or wishful thinking for something?
This is the planner once again. I believe the historic report references a historical district as kind of a accumulation of multiple buildings that could kind of across an area rather than a specific building be a historical landmark, though it is not designated as such. None of the property has been submitted or for or designated historic. These are just in recognition that there are potential historic resources. It was brought to the committee to review and provide any comments if they see fit.
Okay, 'cause it specifically put capital letters, so it's, I thought, well, maybe it was. But it was just something that they're just trying to identify that potentially historic and, potential historic designations. And, so it's just, something that was just highlighted, really. Correct.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Okay, I just wanted to clarify, okay, so I think he did, but I'm just seeing it was put in capital letters, like on Tavares Ranch Historic District. So basically, historic district should be in lowercase letters, as you're just trying to say, hey, we recognize this as a historic area, but it's not an official designated historic district.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
I believe just that the preparers of the report believe it has the merit and ability to be declared that, but it has not undergone any review for such.
Appreciate that, thank you. Okay, any other questions? Commissioner Dyer?
Mr. Chair, yes, this is when we need Commissioner Nye to speak to the definition of the historic district, whether or not it's a designation that we would necessarily give it. I suspect it is in the generic sense, but also in a proper sense, in that if you have enough buildings all in one area, they would constitute that sort of historic resource that they would be called a district. Okay. What I have difficulty with in reading this report is that some of the terms seem to be unclear. We do have two different garages here. One is the 1947 garage, which is has been built after the Second World War, obviously, and it's entirely of sheet metal that we could see. But nobody got to see the inside of that garage, and I would have liked to have been able to see that. But is it clear that then that garage, which I'm now going to use an aerial to reference these different structures, because this is one of the few places where it's clearly identified which one of these buildings is what and where they are. So on this aerial, which is figure 1-2 in the report, it looks like maybe it's either page 9 or page 10. Number 4 is the garage, and we can just see it. So is this one of the buildings that's getting demolished?
Give me just one moment. And Jonathan, if you can maybe switch over to the plans as well. I believe those list all the structures that are getting demolished, though I may need to scroll through to provide more context as well.
I'm sorry, these plans won't be in your packets, but we had some credit issues this morning. Do you know what page it is with the plan report?
Yeah, it's page 20 of 25. Both garages are to remain. If you zoom in a little bit, kind of in the middle, you can see it, 2 references to existing garage to remain. So that the previously referenced number 4 is going to be that garage on the right hand, just directly above on the plans, the house, which is existing garage to remain not numbered, but then there is on the left hand, the other one, which I believe is number I'm sorry, I believe number 4, which was referenced, is the one on the left, and then the one on the right is number 3, which is the shed/garage as listed.
And this is part of the confusion. One of these structures which has been found to be historically significant is sometimes identified as shed/garage. So for clarification, is that being demolished?
No, none of these structures identified as historic are being demolished. I don't believe, and again, just something I'm trying to confirm in this moment, I don't remember if any structures are proposed to be demolished, but Haley, you might be able to confirm that for me.
Yes, none of the structures are being demolished. The only structure on the property that will be altered in any way is going to be the main house, and that's because we're building an addition to it.
Okay, and then on your plans, it's very clearly, all these historic structures are clearly marked and labeled so that nobody accidentally demolishes one of them?
Correct.
I'm asking that question because it's just difficult for us to read these plans at this scale and to be sure in each case that they are identified as historic so that people know there's a reason not to demolish these structures.
Correct. We have no reason to demolish any of the structures, and the current owners have lived there for generations, and they have no wish to demolish any of the structures. So everyone is going to be on their guard, so to speak.
And if the committee would like, that may be something that could be given as a comment that I can then confirm with the agents before approving the project, to make notes on the plans of historic structure not to be demolished. And I can specify in the project description for the project that no structures are permitted for demolition.
Okay. And then the other thing I wondered about, it looks like there's probably going to be some grading here and infrastructure work that is going to come close to some of these structures. Is there any potential impacts from that?
There's no impact that P&D has identified. The grading is all outside of the foundation area and is relatively minimal. That is part of the reason that this is before your committee today, though, just because it is getting close to it. So we wanted the HLAC to review the project for those reasons.
Those are our questions for now, Mr. Chair.
Questions? Okay, so regarding the main house, I think I more clarification. So the exterior walls that are there now were the former interior walls of the original house. So there's the original historic material still in the house.
As I understand it, there are or were found some historic material in the walls when the original remodel was done. Our plan is to double frame the addition, so we will not be doing any, we're trying our best not to even touch the existing structure for structural reasons alone. So the addition is going to have its own foundation and its own bearing walls. We aren't going to be doing anything that would harm the existing residents.
So the addition is not being attached to the main house, it's just off next to it.
It's going to be accessible, but we're double framing it so that the addition does not bear on the existing residents at all.
Any other questions? I have a question. When this house it looks like it was 2000 that it was remodeled from the original 1870s. Did that come before the Historic Landmarks Commission at that time, around 2000? I was not on the board at that time.
I'm not aware if it did. It may not have because it was not declared a historic resource. So that's just unfortunately not something that I'm aware of whether or not it did. I can try to look into that right now if you'd like, though.
I'm curious because I would think it would have been flagged as a historic resource when I went through the planning process. Because we're at the point now that it's been altered so much that it's declared it's not a historic resource at the moment. But I would think in 2000 it would have been a historic resource. But it'd be interesting to see if it went through this commission, because none of us were on at that time, except for, we were on at that time. So we do have the story. And then there was, in the report, it has to do with the 1947 garage. You just mentioned that it was not be touched, but it says in the report that it might be demolished. On management summer. Yeah. It's out to
When we asked for this report to be made, we were kind of overestimating the amount of work that we would do just to make sure that we were within our rights to do any work that we might need to do. But as far as the plans are concerned now, we are not going to be doing any work to the 1947 garage.
Thank you very much. Those are my questions. Any further questions? Let's move to public comment. Do we have any public comment on this item today?
Like the public comment on this item, please raise your hand in the Zoom chat. Anybody here? Is anybody with a public comment on this item? This item, sir?
Okay, thank you very much. So we'll move on to commissioner comments on this project. Who would like to start? Commissioner Conduit.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First, I want to thank the applicants and the historians for their contributions to the information that was provided to us. This was some really interesting history, and it's been done in depth. The Moore family is pretty amazing in itself, but then their successors also, and how they came to be their successors is an interesting story in itself. And what it points out to us is that out in the hinterlands, there are these wonderful little gems that have not been thoroughly made over or knocked down. They're very valuable historic resources. And also there are these groups of buildings. And I think that these groups of buildings are particularly valuable in terms of what they can tell us about our past agricultural history. Although here there's a little overlap with oil too. because of the part of the county it comes from. So I think it was very interesting for all of us simply to read what's happened on this property over the years. It's very valuable now that we have this report, which identifies these as historic structures, and we want to make sure that all your planning documents identify these as historic structures so they don't get damaged. And in that regard, this commissioner thinks the 1947 garage is historic. Okay, it may be like a number of others, but it's actually in wonderful condition because it appears to be just in a frozen in time from this 1947 era, and with the recycled elements from the oil fields, which you do find in North County a lot. I would have liked if the historian had been able to look inside this building and carefully evaluate the framing, especially the roof framing and the post structure, to see what was used there, because actually it was quite remarkable to see these rafters and sleepers that were so consistently used through the house and the shed, and it's a wonderful thing that you can still see this roof framing in the house untouched, and they share all this in common, these buildings. A number of them are basically single wall structures where the walls held them up too. Either that or they have big 8x8 posts. And I would love to see this property come back as a nomination to actually have us declare these structures landmarks, or at least places of historic merit, so we know we've got them on the records as being historic. And also, these families get the recognition that they deserve for maintaining these historic structures. Please, we'd be very glad to entertain some sort of official recognition beyond the fact that they're significant structures for the county of Santa Barbara. I do think the family has a remarkable piece of property here that tells us a whole lot, and to have it preserved is very valuable. And I think the revisions to the house, it's unfortunate that the house was converted, had so many changes to its material in the early 2000s. But the new additions to it is actually quite carefully done in order to not impact that original section of the house. It's like an interlocking piece of the puzzle. It's designed that way instead of totally impacting that original structure even more. So I'm thankful to all who are involved in the project.
Thank you very much, Mr. Beck. Comments, Commissioner Donovan?
Yeah, I couldn't say anything, but I just wanted to echo his comments as well. Well, I kind of agree. The report I thought was very fascinating. I always love historic resource reports. You learn so much about the county and the history. I feel it is a shame that the house had so much done to it without the historic resources being looked at. But that's past, it's done. So I'm fine with the remodel position of this house right at the moment and the AUD. I am just a little concerned about, I mean, this is just an amazing group of historic buildings here. And, you know, sure, nothing's being touched, but I'm also afraid that if nothing's going to be maintained on them, they're eventually going to just disappear just by not being maintained. And I hope the owners understand the
significance of these historic structures they have on the properties. These are structures that are a bygone era that the type of things that you would think, oh, just knock it down because it's not a county courthouse that you want to preserve. But this tells of the time of agriculture in our area that needs to be preserved. And I agree with Commissioner Duncan that I hope the owners really consider landmarking these buildings, either as a merit, a historic merit, and to preserve this part of history in our county. I'm glad they're not planning to touch any of them at the moment, but my big concern, like I just said, is if they're not maintained, they're going to just end up being falling down and we'll lose that resource. So again, I like the project proposed, and I love the historic structures assessment report, and good luck with your next step. Thank you. Okay, we'll move on to the other item. Number 11, the Yapi additions. The County Historic Landmarks Advisory Commission will review and provide comments on the proposal for an interest permit to allow demolition of 977 square feet at the upper floor, a 2,910 square foot upper floor addition, a 2,225 square foot basement lower floor addition, interior remodel of the dwelling unit, construction of a new 779 square foot cabana, and construction of a new pool. No grading is proposed. This is in our first supervisor district, and the address is 768. And we do have a memorandum from the planner on this. So first of all, is there any commissioners that have seen this property or need to step aside from this discussion? Hearing none, I guess we can start first to an overview by the planner, Mr. Hartwell.
Hi there, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, very nice to meet you all. My name is Sean. I'm the planner assigned to this project. Effectively, we just wanted to bring this project to your attention because there is a historical resource and it is proposed to be relocated. And P&D staff were really hoping to have HLAC's review on this and see if they had any guidance moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, so are we ready for applicant presentation on this project?
Yes. My name is William Hefner. Melissa Estena.
There.
Hi.
There you go.
My name is William Hefner, Melissa Dana, and Dennis Hardesty and I are the architects, the landscape architects for the project. We've been planning a project here for some time. We've been to embark for review already. We're proposing a 2,900 square foot addition to an existing lower level structure at the eastern side of the property. Additionally, we're proposing a new pool cabana kind of in the western section of the property, and the new swimming pool. Those are the aspects of the property and we're leaving a couple of the existing landscape elements. The project is situated on sites that kind of old, large, significant house at one point that is no longer there. And this is a portion of that property, so we have a couple of garden plantings that are on the side, which we're going to, the historic consultants are going to present.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Jim Hazeltine and now host the senior partners here from Host Hazeltine Associates. Let's give a brief overview of the report. First, Ben and I noticed this morning that we actually had the wrong address on the report to page 7. So we're going to correct that and send it back to the county. Just set that in. So as far as the history of the property, it its history actually starts in the early 1900s when Geraldine Rose Warren, who was essentially an a member of the English aristocracy, came to Santa Barbara and built a house. And if you look on page 8 of the report under figure 1, you can see a photograph of the original house on the property. So that house was in the Tudor revival style, and it was set on a sort of large elevated platform with an arcuated sort of basement flourished level. That house was designed by Augustus Dickinson, and it was destroyed in a fire in 1924. And if you look on page 10, you can actually see a photograph of the Tudor revival style house. Under 2, this is Casa Buenaventura. That house was purchased in the early teens by the Norton family, and that property. And then they built a new house, which you can see on figure 3 on page 12, which was a Spanish colonial revival style house, incorporating the original platform that the two revival styles sat on. And you can see that in the photograph in the lower center staircase coming down to a rectangular lawn. You go to the top of that staircase, essentially that's the platform that the house was sat on. That still survives. So that was incorporated into these revamped gardens. And you can see the house, flat roofed house, mostly off to the left. That house, as you can see from this photograph, and figure 4 in our report, which is on page 13, that's sort of in the Mediterranean Italian style. On the photograph on figure 4, if you look at the top of the photo, you can see the back end and a very sort of elaborate fountain that still exists and is going to be retained as part of the project. In the center of the photograph, you can see an octagonal garden area with boxwood parterres and a central fountain. That area, which is where the swimming pool was proposed, was later revamped. All the landscaping was removed, and the fountain element was replaced, with the exception of the coping around the base of the pool. You can see sort of that octagonal coping surrounded by flowers. So that's the original element that still survives in that area. And then just beyond that, if you look towards the arched opening, which is the entry door to the house, you can just barely make out a big circular water feature, which remains. We believe that Peter Rydell had some role in the design of this property. We're not clear on the extent of that, because the documentation for his participation in any sort of design work there is a Chase real estate map that he and his son colored in to show all the properties he had worked on, but it doesn't tell us what he did there. And then the property was went to a number of owners, including Avery Brundage, who was a very important historical figure in regards to his role in amateur sports in the United States and internationally. That house, the one that was built to replace the original house, went down in 1964. And if you look on page 16, on figure 4, there's a photograph of the house and the Brundages lived there. And they carried out some alterations here. You can see some of the original landscaping had been removed, but you can also see the Olympic flag flying. So in a nutshell, the report, if you look up figure 18, page 18, figure 5, there's a plan of the existing conditions, and there are some call-outs there. And so the remaining portions of historic landscape that we felt were significant were the octagonal garden area, the larger fountain is called the terrace fountain on figure 5, and then the circular pool, and then the retaining the base of the original house, the arcuated base. other elements to garden have not survived. That one, I believed it was a significant resource because it's a style of landscape design of which relatively few survive in Montecito. And the upper terrace water feature is actually quite interesting. It almost has a Maxwell Parish kind of motif to it. That could likely date back to Miss Waring's original landscape design. And so while the overall landscape is fragmentary, because the property has been subdivided and things have been removed, and the house has been replaced with a new, more contemporary structure in 1964, we felt these surviving elements were an important example of their type at the place of merit level because they don't retain enough integrity as an overall landscape to qualify at the landmark of the county. And then the report goes on to evaluate proposed project. The upper terrace water feature will be restored. The octagonal, where the remnant of the octagonal water fountain is in the octagonal garden, that would be relocated to the northeast. And the garden feature and the place where the octagonal fountain is, the place where the swimming pool would go. And I thought that was supportable because this area has already lost its original parterre garden on the outline of rectangular and octagonal triangular beds that defined the original landscape. It's preserved its footprint and its configuration. And so we felt if the pool could be inserted into that without changing the boundaries and that the coping, the new pool, was referential to coping around existing historic landscape. Water features on the property that we could be supported by. Because the loss, no historic factors lost, but of course that setting is changing a little bit. The circular water feature to the lower center. Go back. That, if you look on exhibit 1 on page 25, you see, I should have brought this up. This is the proposed landscape plan. And just as a note, they are remodeling the house, but the house is recent. It doesn't have any historic merit. Our report concluded that in a previous analysis by Alex Cole also in similar findings in the years. So if we look at this, you can see the shape of the pool. The pool's corners are angled in order to sort of reference the octagonal garden court. Water feature, as you can see, is remaining here. And so our conclusion was that enough of these original features are going to survive and we're going to restore the remnants that survive, that the project would not result in a significant adverse impact to the historic resources. Let me back up this. I should say that because the original, the two houses, the historic houses that are gone, existing houses are sort of modernist take on the Mediterranean style, sort of a attenuated anyway. The placement of the new house is supportable because the scale of massing is referential to buildings that existed there before. We did not conclude that it needs to mimic those original buildings because they're all. Nothing survives them except for the platform. The platform actually, of course, is the original house. And also, I also should add that the guest houses shown on photograph 4, appendix B. It's a great looking little craftsman board and back cottage, but it's not old. And actually, why don't we, if we could go to that page, actually it's not paginated, it's in appendix A. Yeah, thank you. Except all architects' firms. What else? house looks like. And so that's the proposed house as we're cursing by. So it's a sort of fresh take on the Mediterranean style that emphasizes linearity, reductive detailing, plastic walls. And it emulates earlier Mediterranean styles, but it's within the vein of contemporary architecture. No, we're still on the plan set. Yeah. Well, there you go. So right there we go. So it's photograph 4, which is the one on the lower one. There, just you can see the. Yes, at the upper photo, you can look at that. That's the replacement house. Years after the curve. And then if you go down one more page, I believe there's up there. The lower house, that's the board that follows it so convincing. It's old and vintage, but it's not. While we are supportive of the project, we also are cognizant that there needs to be some measures that will ensure that the guidance in the report is implemented. So if you look in section 7 of the report on page 28 and 29. So it's up there. We have a number of measures under section 7. One of them is the guidance into technical preservation briefs that help guide the repair of historic building materials. And then under number 2, we are recommending that the staff include a measure, 4 measures, which you can see there. One of them is the historic preservation treatment plan notes, and that's on page 29 under number 2. The first bullet is to have the historic preservation treatment plan notes on the project plans. And that will help private contractors and other subs to take care around historic resources identified in the report. And under the second bullet is, at this point, the repairs to historic fabric appear to be fairly minimal, but if when they get into the actual repair work, they turn out to be more extensive. The second bullet is directing the applicant to contact the County of Santa Barbara and the Santa Barbara County approved historian to review the treatment plan. For instance, they need to make extensive replacement of, say, a pool coping because it's settled material. And then during the progress of the project under bullet 3, county approved historian will provide letters to the county outline. One, usually do one in the middle where the best is. One sort of during the projects, and this is where we're at. And then at the conclusion of the project, another letter is prepared saying the applicant has fulfilled the measures here under section 7 in the project. And so that essentially is our conclusions that these measures will help ensure that those surviving remnants are treated appropriately. If there are some issues during construction, that they will be reaching out to the county and to the county approved historian to help guide them if they need to make changes. So that ends our presentation. We're here for questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so now we're into the questions for this project for the commissioners. Since this is a landscape design that we're looking at, I believe Commissioner Duncan should be the first one to go ahead on this.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And well, Mr. Representative is at the podium there. I do want to ask him a few things. Now, what I couldn't help but note was that there are a few major parts of this historic landscape design that are being preserved, but there are also some other parts that are going away or being modified. And so I just want to be clear about that. So could we look at page 18, Jonathan?
Yes.
And so obviously, we're keeping the terrace fountain up there in the corner. There we go. And then we're keeping the circular water feature, although it's gonna, the area around it's gonna change a little bit.
Well, I believe it's gonna change a little, but the original coping is just gonna stay. I believe that's sort of smaller pool in the center. So that's reversible. That smaller pool could be removed. The original coping will be there from the original pool. So we were supportive of that.
And then I'm looking here, up and to the left of that is the wall fountain, and there's a whole section of wall which is next to the guest house now that I believe is going away. And that wall fountain, what's happening with that?
Well, it's our understanding the wall fountain is staying, even though that looks like a wall, the reality is there's a wall with the fountain, there's a fountain on it. The rest of that is just landscaping or things that have been added recently. I mean, the actual plantings and stuff, there's not a huge amount of parts there. It's actually the back of that fountain.
So that's really just something at ground level that appears to lead out to it.
Yeah, it's like hedging and things like that, but not, that area has had some modifications when they built the guest house.
So you don't think that needs to be connected so dramatically with the circular water feature to preserve that access?
Well, we talked about that and we felt that it's a sort of, to some degree, it's a more of a secondary feature rather than the three fountains that are actually aligned with each other. And that this other one actually aligned, we believe, with part of the original house which was gone. So we thought, as long as they preserve that feature, that wall fountain element where it is, that we would be supportive of the monitor a little bit in that direction.
Okay, and then I'm looking down on what you would call, I suppose, the southern part of the garden. The terrace itself is remaining and the house is going to be built on it.
Mhm.
But then there appear to be these walls that are on my little plan where they have dotted red lines showing things that are going to be removed. There's some walls and some steps that go away.
I believe the sandstone wall, there's a sandstone wall down there that's not original. It's added later, but there was the central access. Because if you look at go back to figure 3 on page 12, you can see what happened. And if you look at that close, there were retaining walls, but there wasn't a stone wall. It wasn't a stone wall that was added by a wood.
So these are non-character defining things that are disappearing. What's happening?
It's,
Yes.
what that is showing is the guardrail that's on the top of the building that's being changed. That's why that shows being removed.
Okay, so it's actually just a railing wall right
Railing
now.
wall on the
It's
roof,
disappearing because the house is going in that area.
No, because we're just changing that condition. There's a roof deck on top of the existing building there, and so we're changing the railing condition.
So this is non-historic.
The railing's on the store.
And not a part of the character defining feature.
Correct. And the other, Commissioner, is that, well, if you look on this figure 3, you see there's no house on top of the terrace. That is where the original, one of the big wings of the original Tudor style house sat on top of that. And that's the one that we're house.
Okay, and the steps that came down from that, they're going to disappear because what, the house is going to take up part of that area?
No, I believe the house is going to sit on top of the platform.
So the stairs that you see, they go in, at the moment, there's kind of a hole, for lack of a better term, behind in the backside of the existing building that's sort of unfinished and rough. So those steps go down in that hole to what is at the moment sort of another sort of back doorway into it. So that's where the new structure is going. I think there was some other building or some portion of the building there in the past.
And you can actually compare on figure 5 and figure 3. You can see, if you look at the existing condition of that lower terrace area, you can make out the sort of the stairs that come off of the platform. Sometimes called an imperial staircase, because it comes down sideways and then it goes down to separate flights. So that's staying informed from our inspection drawings.
Yeah. And
Pardon me, can you restate that?
Oh, sorry, yeah, those steps, those are staying, those are not.
they're on the far right hand part of the drawing, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are existing. And then one thing that just want to correct something that Tim said before, but the building that's being demolished on the second level above here is an addition that was done 12 or 14 years ago to this building. That was previously approved. And this lower building is not a historic,
Just a terrace part with the arches,
Yes.
archery arches, and the staircase coming down
yes.
to the lower, what used to be a lower garden, which is
Right.
engineered onto its now.
So, but you are retaining the walls which are prominently featured here with your palms. In this illustration, that's part of the historic.
Not sure which page you're talking about.
The gray walls.
Yes,
Yes.
Those are the existing walls.
yeah, those are the historic walls that were part of the southern section of garden.
I believe so.
Yes, with the stair going out, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we are, that's the small repair.
Okay. Okay, and then going back to your report, if we go to page 19. Where you're talking about the significance assessment. You say that the house, the guest house, and carport storage building do not require evaluation as they are less than 50 years of age. But then if you look to the last sentence, it says the house, carport, and design landscape meet the 50 years of age criteria.
That should say you're not.
So
Right.
it's the design landscape that you want to refer to. And then when I'm looking at page 23, and you're listing these parts that are important parts of the landscape with all the bullets here. And I was impressed that A, B, C, E, G, and I, all those criteria were met. Most of these will be the ones that are on top that are staying, but down below, there's a reference to, I think we've already talked about the sandstone retaining walls down below, but the large eucalyptus tree, and there's a reference to a Canary Island date palm. Those are going to stay.
Those are staying.
Yeah. And then if you look at that last line, the paragraph down below, the garden's remaining hardscape features. What do you mean are the other hardscape features?
No, we actually mean, it's a kind of a summary conclusion here. The price sheet said, the price sheet's added about 22 trees, but what we're saying is that, yeah, these have local significance because the overall garden is fragmentary. And both of the original state house, the garden was designed to respond to the farm. So I think we're just making, we're trying to make a statement that it's this smaller area and these distinctive elements that are eligible. And that's why the whole, it's not landmark worthy, it's not really, it's landmark worthy, it's not that level of designation.
Okay, but I think you're talking about not the ones in the bullets. You're talking about the other things that aren't in these bullets.
Well, I think we just didn't state that very articulately. We could revise that. We intended that to just be a summary statement, elements that were bulleted above.
Okay, and you're saying here at a landmark sense.
So,
Because otherwise you're talking
no,
about
yeah.
place of historic merit, aren't you?
Yes, as I said, that's.
Okay. Yeah, I'll grant you, this is a little gem we found. It's really.
Also,
But we need consistency.
of course.
And then, let's see. Okay, those are all the questions I had. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other questions? No questions? Okay. Do we have any public comment on this?
If anybody would like to make a public comment, please raise your hand in the Zoom chat. Not seeing any. Do we have anybody that showed up here would like to make a public comment? Public comment?
Great, thank you. Okay, so we're moving on fast on this item. Let's move to commissioners' comments on this project. Who would like to start? Okay, Commissioner.
Sorry to monopolize so much of the commission's time. Thanks to the owners who were willing to take on the responsibility of handling a site that has so much history. And some of this history is a little scary in terms of the repeated fires that have been on the site. However, it also points out how certain properties have been made over so many different times with different styles. And they've been a great opportunity for the architects and the landscape designers in our community to make new statements. Sometimes it's a matter of what's in vogue, sometimes a matter of personal taste, sometimes it's a matter of what really fits well on the site. So I think what's been designed is a good effort to address what remains of value on the site. And so I'm pleased with certainly the overall direction and specifically the attention that's been paid to saving these remarkable landscape elements. These are from the heyday of the great estates that Santa Barbara is so well known for. And this Italian high style work is not being done anymore. There may be people doing formal things, but they're not doing things really as interesting as these elements were put together. And it's very remarkable how there's so many different axes were incorporated into these elements based upon the changing placement of the house that occurred on this site. You're part of that continuing history, obviously, and I appreciate the responsibility and stewardship that you're stepping up to in working with the existing things and not trying to just make everything over. I'm grateful that the historians were able to dig up all this history, which lets us know how we got to where we are and see the value of these different landscape elements. I do appreciate how the new pool has got these knocked off corners to somewhat echo the hexagonal garden element that was there before. And also that you're reusing the terrace, which was such a major feature here, in a valuable way. I'm quite pleased with what I can see here. I do think obviously we want to follow the guidance of the historians and make sure that what is listed on page 29 as far as essentially mitigation measures going forward are included in the project on the plans and as future requirements. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Oh, also, I do want to comment on Peter Rydell. Okay, the landscape designer who is most likely connected to this, although there's not a hard attribution that we see here. He's just one of a number of really remarkable, originally nurserymen, and then landscape designers, and then educators that we've had in our community. So I was really interested to see how that's documented in this report too. Thank you.
Thank you. Would like to more comments. Commissioner Bleacher.
I would like to say that what I really appreciate about this project is that what remains of the landscape elements, the original landscape elements on this property, show such clean lines, and I appreciate the proposed project echoes and really highlights that aspect of the original landscape design. So I did not receive a copy of the historic report, so I'm trying to follow along as well as possible, but just based on what I have seen and what I have seen and do have, it seems to really honor that, and that the owners are doing that and using as much of these elements as possible.
Anyone else? Well, first of all, I want to say again, this historic resource report. There's so much history on this project, on this property. It's just amazing. You know, seeing the word Augustus Higginson there, I did not realize that he designed the original house there. I just happened to know Augustus Higginson III, and quite a few years ago, I was able to see that house on Channel Drive. That was just an amazing craftsman house, and I was so fortunate to be able to go in and see it. I think at that time now it's no longer exists. I think it was taken down, I believe. But anyway, it was just interesting to see the parallel history in this. I mean, just all the different houses that have been there. This project, you know, I think we're doing a great job preserving the gardens that are there. Sure, there's probably a few things I wish it would, like the wall fountain, that you know, the main important parts of this that are still there are being preserved. And like fellow Commissioner Duncan mentioned, the pool being octagonal just kind of fits in that area. It's very nice. And, you know, it's just fun to overlay these different houses that have been here over the years and how this axis is, this garden is still there. So I think we're doing a very good job on this, and I can't think of anything else to say. And it looks like no one else does either. So thank you very much for coming, and good luck on your project.
Thank you all.
Okay, well, that is our last agenda item for today. And our next regular meeting is going to be November 14th at 10 a.m. And we'll be here in the Board of Supervisors hearing room.